Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
I always say it's the most coveted and the most prestigious award in all of sports podcasts.
According to who?
According to me.
Oh, okay. Well, then it must be true.
You're listening to the Skip and Josh podcast with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
I'm Josh in Toronto.
And I'm Skip in Montreal.
In today's episode, we talk about a goalie that has been on the move,
A football team that has 9 lives.
and another football team that hasn't played at home all year.
But first, let's start with hockey.
Okay, Skip, so I know that the last NFL wildcard game just ended moments ago. So you would think we would talk about NFL football, but before we talk about that, because I know we're going to talk about it, I don't want other sports to get lost in the shuffle.
Okay.
And so there's a few hockey things that I want to talk about.
Okay, so even though NFL just ended, it's all hot on the top of my mind. You want to go to hockey.
Well, you know, football's going to be hot on the top of your mind in 15 minutes from now also.
That's true. So what do you want to talk about hockey?
The National Hockey League.
Well, I have a couple of questions for you and a what bugs me.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So my first question is, I just realized yesterday that PK Subban was in Montreal, and I didn't know, like, that really snuck up on me, literally.
Me too.
And
too.
You living in Montreal, I want to know, was it a big deal like it was the last time he came back to Montreal?
Well, every time he comes back, it's less and less of a big deal. Like, to me, it's not a big deal. He's just another game on the schedule at this point, and he's just another player at this point. Like, to me. I mean, obviously, he's going to still have a place in my heart because I liked him as a player on the team, you know? I mean, he was one of the players that I liked. But at this point, I mean, he's just a player on Nashville, like, to me. But on Twitter and Facebook, you know, the trade is still a sore subject. You know, it's still a sore subject for a lot of people.
I agree.
There's PK haters and there's PK defenders. And those people are going to never, ever change their mind no matter what you tell them, right? So, I mean, just today I was following like a kind of Twitter argument between a bunch of people all about Subban, and it's like, I'm like, get over it, guys. It's 3 years ago, you know? Like, just get over it, you know? You don't like it, you don't like it. The only thing that bugs me more than that is the people that still want Yaroslav Halak to come back.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because he was on my list of people to talk about today.
There are still these like mental defective people.
I mean, only a sick, twisted mind could be that rude and ignorant.
Well, you know, maybe some mental defective put something stupid on her leg.
Even if this so-called mental defective did put something on her leg, she's still the one who laughed.
That like can't get over the fact that we don't have Halak on our team anymore and that we chose Price over him. I mean, it's how many years ago? And my whole argument to that is there's people that don't like Price and there's people that do and whatever, right? But like the whole argument about Halak is how many teams has Halak been on since we traded him? He's on his 6th team since we traded him? He's been on practically every team in the league.
One of the people who love Yaroslav Halak and probably wish he was still on the Canadiens is your son.
He loves him. He still thinks it was the worst trade in the world. But you have to put it in context. He was young. He was pretty young when Halak made that crazy run and to the conference finals when the Canadiens upset Pittsburgh and then Washington, right? Like, so that when you're a kid of 10, 11 years old and that's happening, it really affects you, you know? Like that was his first, like, the first time in his life the Canadiens ever did any damage in the playoffs, you know? So it means something to him. But I mean, Canadiens are not the only organization. Getting back to what I was trying to make my point in a roundabout way is the Canadiens are not the only organization that kind of don't think he's a number one goalie because he's been on how many teams already, right?
That is fair. However, I would like to point out a couple of things to you. Since you mentioned Halak. He has played more games this year than Tuukka Rask has played.
Yeah, for sure.
He has more wins than Rask. He has a better goals against average than Rask.
I'm not saying he's a bad goalie.
And he has a better save percentage than Rask. In fact, I was comparing all the goalies in the NHL who have played like at least 1,000 minutes.
Yeah.
And he's in the top 5 or 10 in pretty much every category.
No, of course he is. But if he was the number one goalie and had to play 75 to 80% of the games, like, because you're saying you're comparing him to Rask, right? Mm-hmm. But if he's the number one goalie and has to play every game, he doesn't have those stats. That's the whole point.
Well, you're probably right, but we'll see at the end of the season.
I think he's a good goalie. I have nothing against the guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's fine. They made a decision. Move on. If you like and follow the Montreal Canadiens, either you're going to follow them and you're going to be loyal to them and you're going to support the moves that they make, or you're not. You know, like,
yeah, listen, I'm not upset that he's not on the Canadiens. I just wanted to point out that he's actually a better goalie than some people think.
He's a very good goalie.
But
is he an out and out number one that can carry the load? There's many GMs that don't think so because he's on his 8th organization already, you know?
So this leads to one of my other questions that I wanted to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
Who the hell picks the All-Stars for the NHL?
Oh my God, it's a freaking joke. Honestly.
Like, if you look at I think there's 8 goalies that were picked, right?
I don't even understand. There's only 2 defensemen on each team.
Well, because they only play 3-on-3 now.
I know, but then why do they have 6 forwards?
I know, I don't get it either. But if you look at all the goalies that were picked as All-Stars, I don't think any of them deserve to be there. Not one of them.
Well, I mean, look, they have to pick guys from each team, right? So already that's like a handicap, right?
Okay, that's why Carey Price is there. That's why Jimmy Howard is there.
Well,
Jimmy Howard? Devin Dubnyk?
Jimmy Howard is one of the top 2 goalies in the Atlantic Division.
No
is that
chance.
What they're saying?
No chance.
Of course not. It's for sure not. And like, look, I understand there's already, the Leafs have a bunch of guys there, right? And there's not that many guys on a team. So, but Mitch Marner, I mean, come on.
No, he should be there.
That's what I'm saying. Like, when I saw that he wasn't on the team, I was like, what? Like, what? I couldn't, it still does not register in my brain that, and I don't like the Leafs, I don't like the Leafs.
I know.
But like, the fact that he's not there is just stupid.
Now, there is a possibility that he gets onto the team because there's this vote where the fans
I know, but then what are they going to have? 7 forwards and still only 2 defensemen?
Yeah, I don't get it. I really don't. I mean, I'm not going to watch the game. You're not going to watch the game.
No, I'm not even going to. First of all, it's not even on my radar at all. Like, the only reason why I knew that they picked the teams is because I read a thing about how Marner was snubbed. And then I was like, oh, Marner was snubbed. Oh, they picked the teams. And then I looked up to see who was on the teams. That was the thought process,
Exactly. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up now, too, because they made the announcement and I was looking at the rosters and I want to name you. I think I just found it online now. I want to name you the goalies that were selected. In the Atlantic Division, Jimmy Howard and Carey Price. Now, Carey Price has been playing better in the last month, but still neither of those goalies are all-star caliber goalies this year.
No, like how come Vasilevsky's not there from Tampa?
Braden Holtby and Henrik Lundqvist. Neither of them are all-star goalies this year.
Okay.
Devin Dubnyk and Pekka Rinne, maybe Pekka Rinne, but certainly not Devin Dubnyk.
Well, he's been playing better, but yeah, so overall, no.
And then finally, Marc-Andre Fleury and John Gibson, definitely not John Gibson.
But, I mean, okay, whatever.
So here are some goalies who weren't named to the All-Star team, who are having very good seasons.
Yeah.
Frederik Andersen is one of them.
Yeah.
This guy on Calgary, whose name I can't even pronounce, David Riddick, I think is how you pronounce his last name.
Okay.
He's having a good season. Ben Bishop, who now is on Dallas, he's playing great. He's having a good season.
Yeah.
And Halak is having a very good all-star caliber season. I mean, I'm not going to name you all.
Yeah, there's more. There's much more.
But there are other guys who, like, here, for example, on the Islanders, Robin Lehner.
He's doing great.
Yeah.
They're hamstrung by having to pick, guys from each team, and that's the way it ended up, right?
I guess.
Because if they don't pick Price, just looking from the Canadiens' angle, if they don't pick Price, then who do they pick? Max Domi, but you can't bump up forward from the Atlantic to put in Max Domi because they're all too good, right? If Mitch Marner couldn't make it, Max Domi can't.
Right. The problem is there are some forwards who are also named to the team who don't deserve to be there. I'm not going to go through the entire list.
Yeah.
But like there's just some forwards who are named that shouldn't be there either, and that's
Right.
That's why once they've been named, I guess I don't know if the fans voted the original players on. Well, then you're already painted yourself into a corner.
Yeah. So where actually is NHL All Star this year?
By the way, I'm still calling it All Star Game.
I did that on purpose.
I know you did. It's in San Jose.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
And by the way, Alex Ovechkin, I don't know if you heard, he's decided that he's not
He
playing.
bowed out. Yeah.
And he's going to get suspended for a game because of that.
He doesn't care. And the team obviously is aware.
Right. I have no problem with him skipping the game.
That players have done that throughout history. This is like not a new thing.
Exactly.
This is not a new thing at all.
You know, if he had never played in an All-Star game before, or if he skipped every single All-Star game, I might have, had an issue with it. But the guy's played in 7 All-Star games.
Yeah,
He won the Stanley Cup.
Anything.
He played 2 extra months of the season last year. He's off to a terrific start this year. I don't have a problem with him sitting out the game.
Obviously, his team doesn't either. His team's probably all for it. They want him to have a week off and the extra game. They don't care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there are some people who think that he shouldn't miss the game. He should play the game.
Well, there's always those people that are like, the All-Star game is the showcase for all the sponsors and potential advertisers. It showcases the league. Well, it doesn't showcase the league because it's a 3-on-3, like, contrived event.
Yeah, it's
right?
nothing like the real
3-on-3 is
NHL.
not what hockey is, so you can't go there, It's something for the fans. It's supposed to be something fun. To tell you the truth, it's for the kids. I remember when you mentioned my son before, when he was little, he loved he loved watching the All-Star game. To him, it was a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. And then actually, when you mature a little bit and you start to understand the sport a little bit more, you realize that like the All-Star game is stupid and you don't watch anymore. That's the evolution of the All-Star game.
So, a couple more hockey things, and then we'll go on to something you want to talk about.
Sure.
I don't know if you watched any of the World Junior Championships.
I did. Oh, I'm glad I'm glad because you know what? The World Junior always sneaks up on us, right?
Yeah, we didn't talk about it last episode or the one before that. So first of all, congratulations to Finland, a well-deserved gold medal for them.
Absolutely. Their goalie, first of all, is fantastic.
The other thing I wanted to mention, there were 2 players, one on USA and one on Russia, who are both Montreal Canadiens property, who had phenomenal tournaments.
Yeah, Ryan Poehling, and then the other guy is Romanov, is the defenseman.
That is correct. So hopefully that will translate into bright NHL careers, but who really knows? Because you've seen players have excellent tournaments and then you never hear from them again.
Look, they're 19 or 18, so like the development at this point in their career, obviously they're at the top of their peers. They're the best players of their age group in the world, which is great. But it doesn't always translate to the NHL, Jacob Delarose was captain of Sweden, right? And we know where that ended up.
But here's what bugs me about this tournament.
What bugs me? A triumphant return of what bugs me. Can't wait.
You're getting me, boy, are you bugging me, man? I'm gonna nail. Ooh, I'm getting bugged now. Whoa, man.
First of all, it's bad enough that this happens every single game.
Mm-hmm.
But it shouldn't happen at all in any of the games. And what I'm referring to is at the end of the game, they have both teams line up at the blue line, and then they hand out these awards, like the player of the game gets a watch, and then the top 3 players of each team get something. I don't know what they get.
For every game. For every single game.
Every single game.
Yeah.
And I know why they do it, because it's a sponsored thing, and the sponsor wants their name to be plastered all over the place.
And it's worse in the medal games because they hand them out their medal.
Right.
And when you won the silver and you just lost the gold medal game, it kind of sucks.
Well, it's not like, first of all, you remember last year, one of the players who won the silver threw his medal into the crowd.
Yeah.
And this year, I don't know if you saw in the bronze medal game, I think it was, the game that Russia lost. I forget which game it was.
Yeah, the bronze medal game. They lost to Switzerland.
The player of the game, the Russian player of the game, he basically threw his helmet because he was pissed off and he had to go accept his award. So what bugs me is they should not force the team that loses to stand there and do this, because no player that just lost a game, hockey or any sport at any level, whether it's the juniors or the professionals, any athlete who just lost doesn't want to be there. They just want to be left alone. And they certainly don't want to stand there and pose for photos and hold up.
If you want to give, you're right. And if you want to give the player of the game for that team, well, call his name and he'll come out and accept it.
Or
right?
or don't just give it to him after the fact. Like, it doesn't have to be a ceremonial thing.
Yeah.
But the team that loses shouldn't be forced to stand there, because it happened pretty much every game. The losing team had to stand there and listen to the other team's national anthem being played.
Watch them celebrate.
And it's just, that's why you get these reactions by these kids, and then
they're scrutinized.
On social media, you hear people saying, oh, he didn't act classy at all. Listen, he just lost a game. If I just lost a game, I wouldn't be classy either. I just want to be left alone.
And they're 18 years old.
Yeah.
They're still kids, you know?
So that's
Honestly.
that's what bugs me about the tournament, and I think that they should fix that or change it or do something.
They are putting those players in a difficult position.
Yeah, exactly.
They're setting them up to be scrutinized, you know, so.
So, one other hockey note, Canada did not win the Spengler Cup this year.
Did you watch?
I didn't watch any of it.
That means they had no one watching. If you didn't watch, who watched? No, if you didn't watch, then no one did.
But I just want to name you 3 players that were on Team Canada's roster, since you probably didn't know this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Their goalie was Zach Fucale again.
He was there last year.
Yes. And 2 of their forwards were Matt D'Agostini.
Yeah, ex-Hab and Blue. Yeah.
Correct. And Maxime Lapierre.
Oh, Max Lapierre. Well, he was on the Canadian Olympic team.
That's correct.
In the last Olympics, right? When they had to scrounge up whatever players they could
think
get.
A bunch of the players that were on the Spengler Cup team were also on the Olympic team.
Well, because those are the players that are playing in Europe, right? Pretty
yes,
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What do you want to talk about?
Let's go to the NFL.
Let's go to the NFL.
The National Football League.
I mean, the Wildcard Weekend just ended before we started recording.
Yeah. And by the way, thank God the Eagles won, or else we wouldn't be doing this episode.
No, we would be doing. I mean, you
would be crying right now.
I mean, I expected, honestly. Okay, let's start with the Eagles. Did you watch all the games? How many games did you watch out of 4 games this week?
I watched all of both games today, and I watched half of the Cowboys game.
Okay, yeah, I watched all of that, and I watched half of the Colts game. I didn't watch it all.
Yeah, I watched a bit, like maybe 1/4 of the Colts game.
Mm-hmm. So let's start with the Eagles game. It's fresh in my mind, on yours too. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was expecting them to lose. When the other kicker has a 43-yard field goal in the dying seconds, you fully expect the kicker to make the kick. Now, I need to tell you 2 things about that kick. First of all, Cody Parkey was the Eagles kicker 2 years ago. So me and my son fully, and all Eagles fans fully know how much he sucks, right? Now, he hit the upright and the crossbar on the same kick, right? Mm-hmm. And it didn't go in, and it could have easily bounced over. And I actually thought it bounced over.
Yes, and if it bounced the other way, it's good.
Yeah. You saw, I'm sure they showed it. I mean, there's one game this year where he hit the upright 4 times in the same game.
Which is unbelievable.
Okay? So, this is not a new thing for him. Now, I need to make a declaration. I need to backtrack on something that I've been talking about for 2 years.
I know what you're going to say. I
don't think you do. I
thought of you as this was happening.
I'm never, ever going to speak badly about icing the kicker again.
This is exactly what I was thinking
Really?
about. Exactly. Because you even said on this show that rule should be banned. You should not be allowed to ice the kicker.
You still shouldn't be, because it's really like in poor sportsmanship, or I don't know the right word, but
100% it is.
When you call timeout literally as the kicker's like moving, you know, like the play is sort of starting, and then the coach waits to the last possible second to call timeout. But like, it worked. Don't you think that it worked in this game?
In this game, it worked, but you've seen situations where it's backfired.
Or if you're the Dallas Cowboys coach, you ice your own kicker.
So it's just very funny, because as it was happening, I'm like, oh, I remember Skip saying, and I also said that I don't like this rule. And now, sure enough, when it comes in handy for you, for your team, you love the rule.
Yeah, I love the rule. I mean, was it a great game today? No, it was good. It was okay. It was a fun ending because of the missed kick, and then also the Eagles had to drive to get a touchdown in the last minute of the game, right? The NFL is so ruled by instant replay. Like, not just, I mean, in both games today, there was one play that was like, I couldn't believe the what was at stake on one call of the ref. You know, like the play in the Eagles game where they called it incomplete because, you know, he stripped it out of his hands and the announcers were saying, well, it should be a catch, and then the fumble, but because no one recovered the fumble, like what happens? You know, the Bears should have the ball. But the first thing that popped into my head on that play is like, because they kept showing how the ref was just standing next to the ball and no one bothered to pick it up. Right after that. How many times in an NFL game, at least once in every single game, and more than once, a guy picks up a random ball that like squirts out and starts running the other way like he's going to get a touchdown, and everyone's blowing the whistles and waving their hands. This play, no one picks up the ball. Like I was the whole time that they were analyzing the play, analyzing it, looking at it from every angle, and they had their referee specialist talking about it and everything. And I was like, no one picked up the ball? They pick up the ball on random stupidity every single time and start running like they're going to get a touchdown until their team tells them to stop, you know? Like, it's so stupid.
It was pretty crazy. But
and then I don't know.
I know they talked about that play over and over again. They even mentioned it again in the second half. They brought in their rules expert. I don't know.
Well,
his
they
name.
talked about the rule. There's obviously a loophole in that rule because the only reason why they called it incomplete is because there was no one picked up the fumble. Like there was no return. But there was no recovery.
But this is what bothers me. This is what bothers me about the NFL rulebook, because just because no one did that doesn't mean you should ignore everything that happened before that.
You're absolutely right.
So if it was a complete pass, which it was according to the rules, then it should be a complete pass. And then the fact that no one picked it up, so then the ball should be where the pass was caught or where he got stripped of the ball. That's where it should be.
But it kind of sucks for the defensive team because they made a great play of stripping the ball, and then we couldn't even see how the fumble played out.
Well, that's their fault, because what they should have done is they should have picked it up and ran it back the other way.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I don't really like that rule. There's a bunch of rules in the NFL that I don't like. We're not going to get into any of them now.
But so much, everything that happens, you have to wait for the replay now.
Oh,
everything.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm going to segue away from the Eagles in a second and make my point about the instant replay. But like all this to say, congrats to the Eagles. They have to play the Saints next week, and we all know what happened last time they played the Saints. They lost 45-7, and it was ugly. That's all there's to say. It was ugly.
I have to say that none of these games this weekend were that exciting. The Colts game was a boring game. I mean, it was never really in doubt.
The Cowboys game was also very boring.
Well, at least that one was close, sort of.
Yeah. So let me just finish my point about the instant replay, and then we can talk about the games as a whole, because I think we're going on the same direction on the level of play in this weekend. Mm-hmm. So in the San Diego Baltimore game.
Oh, by the way, you just did what I was going to do. You just called them San Diego. But it's okay, because I was going to put a disclaimer at the beginning of this episode. I'm going to refer to the Chargers as the San Diego Chargers from now on. I will always do it. Don't bother correcting me, because as far as I'm concerned, they're still the San Diego Chargers.
You're right. So in the Chargers-Baltimore game, there was also the play that it was even almost a crazier instant replay play where the running back of San Diego, Gordon, dove to the end zone with the ball in one hand, lands at the goal line. The ball comes out for a fumble.
Yes, I remember.
Baltimore picks it up and runs it all the way back the other way for a touchdown. Now, the instant replay is going to tell you which team scored. It's like a touchdown on either way, right? Either he's in for the touchdown, or if he's not in for the touchdown, it's a fumble and the other team has a touchdown.
Can it not just be a fumble and the play is dead?
No, because they picked it up and ran it back. Like, it was the opposite of the Eagles play. Baltimore recovered the fumble and ran it back, and they chased him down, and then the whole deal. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty interesting. Like, and it's like, when they're looking at, like, did it cross the plane of the goal line? It's like, wow, it's so hard to tell, because it's like, in his hand or is it in his hand? You can go frame by frame. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like the technology is like actually outgrown the rules. You know. Mm-hmm. Like when they wrote the rule book, they don't consider that you can look at every single frame. You know, even on plays where they're like, did he have 2 feet in bounds? You know, because there was a play in the Eagles game where the running back didn't get his second foot in bounds, But it's like he kind of did because his heel kind of touched first and then his toe. It's like if you look at it in a million ways, you can kind of see it in both sides, right?
Yeah, it's not 100% accurate.
Yeah. No.
You can convince yourself either way sometimes.
Yeah. The what you were getting at is like we've seen a season where scoring was way up. I mean, I called the league the National Flag Football League after that 54-51 game on Monday night, and but what we saw this weekend was defensive football and a lot of low-scoring games. You know, like that Colts game was a snooze fest. First of all, I mean, like they scored 21 points, the Colts, but like Andrew Luck didn't have to throw the ball more than 10 yards. Everything was dink and dunk, and they got 3 touchdowns, and that's all they needed, right? The Cowboys game was actually, to me, extremely boring. Like, I don't understand what the offensive coordinator on Seattle is doing. That's like one of the worst called offensive games I've ever seen. You know, you have Russell Wilson, a quarterback. He's literally your only good offensive player, and Doug Baldwin, right? That's your 2 best guys. So what do you keep doing? You keep handing it off to the running back who gets 2 yards every time. Every single time. Like, their running game clearly wasn't working. And they kept going to it and going to it. If they would have just let Russell Wilson run around and do like the 2-minute drill the whole second half, they would have won the game. You know?
Well, you're right. He is their best player, and they probably didn't use him enough.
Yeah. Because when they kind of needed to, like, he was able to make plays, but it was too late, you know? Well, in the early game today, also, I mean, we knew that was going to be the defensive game because Baltimore really, like, they're built on defense, you know?
But the Chargers played a good defensive game themselves.
Well, it's not hard against Baltimore. They can't do anything. They can only run.
Yeah,
he completed 2 passes in the first half.
Yeah, you're talking about
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, he actually had a good fourth quarter.
He had a good fourth quarter. He figured something out, but
it was too little, too late.
He had 2 completions for 17 yards after 1 half of game. That's not good.
No,
I'm no expert, but that's not good.
And they kept talking about, are they going to bring in
Joe Flacco?
Thank you.
I would have brought him in.
I don't know if it would have mattered.
No, I don't think it would have. I was following on Twitter and I was watching, what was unfolding, and like a lot of people were like, bring in Flacco, and then other people were like, you can't do that. Like there's both sides of the story on social media, but like
you can totally do that.
When your guy only has 2 receptions for 17 yards, I think you're justified to bring in the backup, regardless of what their names are. You
know that this was only the first time that Lamar Jackson was facing a team for the second time. And so clearly the Chargers learned something either from the last time they played each other or from the film that they watched.
They did.
And because it seemed like they had him under control almost the entire game.
Well, the announcers were pointing out that they had like basically 3 safeties playing linebacker. They had 3 safeties in the game at all time, and one of them was just spying Jackson the whole time. So he didn't really break any big runs. I mean, obviously he's going to. He's a tremendous athlete. He's going to make plays, But they really contained him, and they kind of forced him to throw because his first instinct is always to run. And they forced him to throw, and you saw how inaccurate he was,
And the reason I think Flacco might have had more success is because when these 2 teams played each other a couple of weeks ago, Flacco didn't play at all.
Well, Flacco hasn't played for like 8 weeks.
Exactly. And so I don't know when the last time the Chargers have faced Flacco. It might have been, it might be years. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so that would have been a different look that the Chargers defense would not have been accustomed to. And so that's the reason why you would bring in Flacco if you were going to do it.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Their whole game plan was geared to stop this mobile quarterback, right?
But I, for one, am happy that the Chargers won because I have anointed them as my new favorite team.
Yeah. Well, for sure. But now, like, the Chargers have to go and play the
Patriots in New England.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm glad you asked because I think I've mentioned this before. I really don't like the NFL playoff format. The fact that the Chargers had to go on the road this week when they clearly had a better record than Baltimore.
It's just the way it goes.
And then the Chargers have a better record than New England, and they have to go on the road again next week.
Yeah.
And of all places to play in New England, like what's the Patriots' record in New England?
Yeah,
in
I mean the Patriots don't get the Patriots are like everyone's cheering against them, like you are, right?
Yeah.
Most people want the Chargers, but
except friend Patriots of the show, are going to be Schnerbs.
Yeah, Patriots are going to be tough at home though.
They will.
They are.
Which is why I'm not happy that the Chargers have to go there and play them.
And I could fully see the Colts going into Kansas City and winning.
Well, I don't really necessarily agree with you on that one.
I think their defense is pretty good, and I think they're going to just control the tempo of the game, you know?
Well, we'll find out, I guess.
We'll find out.
That's why they play the games.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Rams are going to blow out the Cowboys.
I really hope so.
And the Eagles, I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that they can keep it close against the Saints.
The Eagles defy logic because they should have lost today and they won. And they should not have won the Super Bowl last year and they won the Super Bowl. And they're using, as you know, their backup quarterback again.
But in all fairness, yes, they're using their backup quarterback, but he's a very good quarterback.
Yeah, he's like Yaroslav Halak.
He's as good as like most guys, you know? So it's not like, I mean, do I think Wentz is better? I think Wentz at full strength when he can scramble around and he's completely healthy is better. But right now,
regardless of which quarterback they're using, the Eagles didn't have a very good season. Yes, they made the playoffs. I think they only beat 2 or 3 teams that made the playoffs.
Yeah.
So
two maybe.
So I wasn't expecting anything from the Eagles, but they just won in Chicago. And they could maybe do the same thing in New Orleans next week, although it is hard to win in New Orleans for the road team.
It's tough. It's going to be tough because their biggest weakness is the secondary.
Also, they're playing a much better offense.
No, that's what I'm saying. Their biggest weakness to this is their secondary, right? They showed the graphic today. They've used 14 different defensive backs this year. They've used 13 different defensive back starters, right? So guys that are playing today weren't even on the team at the beginning of the year. And then guys that are starting were backups at the beginning of the year, you know? So they've gotten better because now all of a sudden these guys are practicing, you know? Like they've got their time with the first team, and they're getting better because they're getting more used to the whole tempo, and like they're just getting used to the speed of the game and the plays and everything. But like if any team is gonna take advantage of a bad secondary, it's gonna be the Saints, right?
Yeah, Drew Brees.
He's just going to pick them apart as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And what makes the Saints so difficult to defend against is that they have a great running game too. So you can't just say, oh, we're going to stop Drew Brees, you know, because then he's just going to hand it off to Ingram and Kamara, and they're going to kill you.
Well, maybe the Eagles will have some sort of miracle like the Vikings did last year.
Well, I think they got their miracle today. That's the problem. I think they've exhausted their miracles, don't you think, based on last year and this year?
No, I wouldn't call this today's a miracle because it was more a bad play by the other team, not a good play by them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But it's still, they needed a hell of a lot of luck to keep going.
Yes, you know? Yes.
There's one thing that I really wanted to talk to you about the NFL.
Yes.
Which was something happened this week that doesn't happen often. I know we always like to talk about announcers. Mm-hmm. So we had a bit of a treat this week in that there was 4 games on 4 different networks.
Yes.
And we had 4 different announcing crews.
Yes. And it was each network's top crew.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we had, for instance, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Mm-hmm. We had Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth tonight. Mm-hmm. We had Romo and Jim Nantz. And we had Joe Tessitore with Witten and Booger McFarland in the booth. They had a threesome there.
Well, you know, I don't like the Monday Night Football games on ESPN, and that was the early game yesterday. Was the same as the Monday Night Football.
In fairness, they got the worst game.
They always do. They always do.
But I think Joe Tessitore was pretty good, and I don't mind Jason Witten. Mm-hmm. And Booger, you notice he's not in his special seat?
I know. Like, was that because it's a playoff game? Like, what was the deal with that? I don't know.
I'm not sure because I thought the special seat was stupid.
I didn't like it either.
Maybe they did too, or I'm not sure what happened. Nance I think is fine. Romo, you expressed how you feel about him. I think he's an acquired taste, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. Buck and Aikman. Well, Buck is a professional and he's a very good announcer. I really like any guy that does like different sports because he's great at baseball too. Mm-hmm. You know, I think he's really good. Aikman annoys me because I feel he never adds anything to the game. He just states the obvious. You know, that's his biggest strength is stating the obvious. And then Michaels and Collinsworth. I mean, Al Michaels is also a great play-by-play guy, and Collinsworth is fine. He's a bit out to lunch sometimes, but he's okay. You know, like I don't love any of them. I don't hate any of them. You know, to be honest, I really, you know.
3 of the 4 games had former Dallas Cowboys in the booth.
The Cowboys are everywhere.
You can't get rid of those Cowboys.
You can't get rid of them.
No matter
but
what you want.
Don't you find that like Jason Witten is trying so hard to be just like Tony Romo?
I
feel they
didn't
have
watch
the same
much of that
style.
game, so I can't really comment on Witten.
I feel like they have so much of the same style. It's like, oh, they're like gung-ho and they're really like, they're trying to like make it exciting and bring a fresh take to it, But it's like,
well,
whatever.
they're players. They're not television people.
They're players.
And so they are behaving the way they would be if they were on the sideline during a game.
Yeah, but Collinsworth is also an ex-player, but he doesn't.
Yeah, but he retired a long time ago.
It's so long ago. Yeah,
like
yeah.
Witten just retired, and Romo just retired a couple of years ago, and even Aikman. Yeah. I know he's been retired for maybe 10 years, but that's still relatively recent.
Yeah. Anyways, I just thought it was interesting because we got a chance to listen to all the different number one teams of each network, and none of them wowed me.
No, the games weren't that exciting. By the way, speaking of football. So I know that we did our year-end episode where we gave out awards to the best team, the best player, the best play, the best game, all that stuff. So
you want to make an addendum?
I would like to make an addendum. While the best play that I picked was an exciting play, obviously Jordan Poole hitting a 3-pointer from half court to win the game for Michigan.
Yeah.
I, for some reason, forgot about the Miami Miracle.
Kenyon Drake.
I don't know how I forgot about it because it just happened like a week before we recorded.
Yeah.
So that clearly should be the play of the year. There's no question.
So we're gonna reclassify.
Yes.
And now the Miami Miracle is your play of the year.
Tannehill will throw it, and this will end it after the shovel, or will it? Miami running around, circling. Oh, look out! Gronkowski didn't have the ankle. Touchdown! Oh, Kenyon Drake! A miracle!
For sure. And in addition to it being a very exciting play and something that you don't see very often, it also happened against New England. So, of course, I have to pick that play.
It was great. And actually, Kenyon Drake's reaction and the whole celebration around it was also a big part of it.
Yes.
I really enjoyed that. Yeah. So, keeping on the theme of the year-end awards, I really want to commend you on your Song of the Year choice.
Oh, okay.
Because that song, The Underdog by Spoon, I listened to it like about 100 times since we recorded last time. And I really, really like that song. And I could tell, it's really a great song.
This is a first, by the way, because you don't usually like the songs that I like.
Well, it's a kind of mellowy feel to it because of the horn section, I don't know. It's a great song.
Okay.
As soon as I listened to it, I'm like, wow, this is great. I got to hand it to Josh on that one. So you had a great choice for Song of the Year.
Yeah.
And I really love your Vegas Golden Knight pick for Team of the Year. I felt pigeonholed, and I almost had to go with a lot of Eagles stuff. I was hamstrung in a way.
Okay.
But the good picks.
I think you also, if you recall 6 months ago when we did our best sports songs, I think you liked my list better than your list.
Well, I didn't like your list better than your list, but when you read your list, I was like, oh, that's a good one. There's stuff that I hadn't considered,
There were 3 songs in there that you completely forgot about.
Wow. Yeah, I have to admit. So before we sign off, remember, you can listen and subscribe to new and archived episodes of the Skip and Josh podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio. We would love to hear from you via email, skipandjoshshow@gmail.com, via Twitter @skipandjosh, or by liking and following our Facebook page. And as always, skipandjosh.com has all the links to everything.
We leave you with this.
I got a text this week, Cubby.
From
one of our loyal listeners, Mark in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And you had asked if he was going as Gritty.
If he did go.
For Halloween.
Yes.
So he said no, I did not, but he sent me a link to a website on philly.com, which is building a Gritty costume for Halloween. Here's what you need to know.
There you go.
So you're clearly not the only one on that wavelength. And I suspect that in the upcoming Halloween, Gritty's probably going to be one of the more popular costumes in Philadelphia.
He should have been this past Halloween because he just was born a
when
month
he was
before.
Launched. Yeah.
Like he was a month before or 2 months before the last Halloween or something.
But who knows? Maybe the legends of Gritty is just going to keep growing.
It's the only good thing they have going on. The Flyers team is terrible. So
Yeah.
So a couple of quick notes about college basketball. You remember we spoke about Manute Bol's son, whose name is Bol.
Yeah, he's top prospect.
He is, but unfortunately he injured his foot and he's out for the season. And so basically his college career is now over after only 9 games.
That's too bad.
It is
His
too
draft stock is probably going to be affected now.
It might be.
Yeah.
And then staying on the injury report topic or subject, you may remember Oduko Azubuike from Kansas because they defeated Duke last year.
He's a beast.
Yeah, well, he also got injured today, I believe, and he's also out for the season. So that's definitely a big blow to Kansas because they, think that they're going to win the championship this year.
I have news for them. They're not winning without Azubuike.
Well, I mean, they're still a good team, but he's going to, that's going to certainly hurt their chances.
It's not someone that they can easily replace. Just his physicality, right? Yeah.
And then our last note about college basketball. UCLA is having some issues. I think they recently fired their coach, and they have not a good record.
Yeah.
And so they were doing a UCLA game on ESPN a few days ago. And so the play-by-play guy asked the color commentator, "Who do you think should be the next UCLA coach?" And of course, the color commentator was Bill Walton, and we've heard Bill Walton say some outrageous things in the last few years.
He's living on his own planet.
Exactly. So when he was asked, who do you think should be the next UCLA coach, he said with a straight face that it should be Barack Obama.
That's classic. Classic Bill Walton.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy had the nuclear codes. He must be able to run a basketball team.
Exactly.
Right? That's beautiful. All right, that's all you got?
That's all I got.
All right. Awesome episode. I'll speak to you next time.
All right. Talk to you soon.